Hello summoners and welcome to another meta guide video. With this guide, you're going to have an edge on your opponents who are still adjusting and have a bad read on the meta. 9.20 isn't a huge patch, but a few champions are receiving some big changes which could really shake things up. Based on balance changes, emerging picks, and what seems strong, we're going to give you guys some advice on how to prepare yourself for this meta. Once the new patch rolls out, you'll be ready to win more games. And of course, if you want to win even more games, then you have to click the link below to go to ProGuides.com and get Challenger coaching right now. Well, there's a lot to cover, and all this information is pretty relevant no matter what role you play. Do note, however, that a lot of this is based on the planned changes based on the information from rioters and from the PBE server. Things can always change, so make sure you guys are always ready to adapt. For our question of the day, which champion is your kryptonite? Mine is definitely Kha'Zix, 100%. Every time he's on the enemy team, I just somehow manage to lose all my games, even when I play well. Let us know down below who that is for you. But before we get started, I already mentioned it, but go to ProGuides.com if you want to see huge improvements to your rank. We upload tons of great video guides similar to this one on our website every single day. And as of now, we're currently uploading Challenger gameplay analysis guides for all champions. So make sure to check that down below if you guys want to see big improvements this season. Alright, the first thing worth mentioning is that there are some tentative buffs lined up for Locket of the Iron Solari. This is a buff to the support role altogether, but specifically helps a lot of defensive supports. Support is going to be an even stronger role in the mid-game thanks to these changes, as the extra shield can honestly decide life or death for your allies. Conversely, if you enjoy playing divers, this is going to make it a bit tougher for you to successfully jump onto the backline, so be cautious of this. Like we mentioned in our last update, Garen is on everyone's radar. It's looking like his changes are going through this time, so we want to mention them briefly. We did, however, cover his changes as well as many other ones we're going to talk about in our upcoming changes video, so if you want more details, make sure to check that video out. Overall, Garen has lost some numbers in his kit, but has better damage scaling, especially because of the fact that his E will now stack up Conqueror. Honestly, he's probably going to be a dominant pick if he doesn't receive nerfs before going live. Like we mentioned in our last episode as well, you'll do yourself a service by starting to learn him. Yes, he doesn't have hard mechanics, but just like any champion, you want to play them to become comfortable on them and also learn some matchups. No matter how easy a champion might seem, you can always learn something by playing against various enemies and experimenting. In response to this, you should also consider adding Kayle and Mordekaiser to your champion pool. Both of these champions are killing it on the Rift right now and are also great answers to Garen. We expect them to become even more prominent picks as a result of Garen's upcoming changes. Another reason we suggest picking up these champions is the fact that they deal magic damage. AD mid laners are extremely strong at the moment and also very popular. You'll be in a pretty bad situation if you find yourself with a 5 AD team comp, so being able to play a powerful magic damage champion is an invaluable tool in your arsenal. For those of you who are learning top lane just for the sake of fill games, it's definitely worth it to pick up Sion or Ornn. While Ornn isn't brain dead easy, it's kind of a stretch to call him difficult once you've used his ultimate a few times in practice tool. Both of these champions can function extremely well without much gold, so you can pick them up and just try to farm up. Naturally, your utility and tankiness will allow you to be relevant later into the game as long as you don't let yourself get slammed during the early game. It really only takes 1 or 2 games to learn Sion. For Ornn, just a couple more since his ult can be a little bit tricky. For such little time investment, you guys will get some massive results from these champions. But if instead you're willing to put in some more time, then pick Kayle and Mordekaiser like we mentioned, but also try out Teemo, we're not kidding, Quinn, or Kennen. They're all ranged champions, meaning that they're safe and able to take advantage of wave management. If you guys are interested in understanding more about wave management, we have a ton of great advanced resources on ProGuides.com to help you out with that. Alright, on to the jungle. Well, in the jungle, we do see some changes coming to Shaco. There's some pretty hefty changes, so make sure to check them out if you want to learn more about this clown. The biggest change our analysts take note of is the fact that his boxes will now hit all nearby targets. Overall, this leads to a much safer, more reliable, and faster clear. For those of you who play junglers who get low on their first clear, remember to proceed with caution. If you don't already, you'll need to form the habits of placing a trinket ward somewhere in the river very early on in the game. There's just no way you'll be able to stop a Shaco from jumping in and invading you, so instead you'll have to find ways to avoid it. One result could be that Shaco becomes a much more popular pick next patch as a result of this. To prepare for that, One option is to have a tank jungler in your arsenal of picks. Zac and Nunu are both tough matchups for Shaco, and they both also have stellar win rates. You'll get a lot out of these picks because they're so good at supporting their teammates and engaging. They're so hard to kill, especially if you're playing a champion who relies on their burst damage like Shaco. All a tank has to do is chase you down and you won't be able to do anything since you can't kill them. There's almost no room for argument, but teamfighting is basically the best way to carry games. If you win teamfights, you make progress towards the enemy's nexus and also gain a ton of gold. From there, it gets even easier to continue snowballing and eventually just win through brute force. Tank junglers provide a lot of teamfight presence because of their ability to initiate, soak damage, and also deal a decent amount of damage when left unchecked. Another pick we suggest is Ivern. He's also receiving a change next patch that'll turn him into a ranged champion. That's right, he is now ranged. He's already a pretty decent pick who serves a unique supportive niche. This small buff is a huge help in the early game as it'll allow him to function even without a brush nearby. Previously, he was pretty much doomed if he was caught away from one, but now he's got a better chance in skirmishes. It'll also be a huge buff in his early game ganks, as placing a brush will be optional now and he won't randomly switch to a lower range once his opponents manage to back off a little bit. Not to mention, since he's a ranged champion, he's also a lot easier to play, he's going to be a lot easier to pick up, and we highly recommend him this meta. If he fits your playstyle, then definitely start picking him up. Otherwise, we suggest picking up an aggressive jungler like Kha'Zix or Elise. Kha'Zix, the champion that I dislike the most, has been an extremely high-tier pick for several patches now, and he's able to carry games with his insane burst damage. Elise also hard carries games, but focuses more on early game ganking and dive setups. If she pulls ahead, however, she's just as potent a threat as many other junglers, and has comparable burst to an assassin-type character. In the current meta, lane matchups tend to be extremely volatile, and scaling picks like Jinx and Kayle are considered very powerful. To succeed under these circumstances, a champion pick isn't going to be enough though. You'll need to practice testing your limits and become comfortable turret diving your opponents. Anytime they're low or if your teammates are able to stack waves, it's important to be able to assess a situation and determine if you can dive or not. Honestly, we can't emphasize how important proper tower diving is. Scaling champions need to be punished, and especially in lower elos, they tend to just get away with a free lane. Laners can find difficulty winning matchups against scaling champions simply because their opponents can sit back and just farm safely. In these situations, the only leads laners can get are farm leads. They'll also be able to take lane priority and manage the minion waves, but afterwards, it's definitely up to the jungler to capitalize on this. Okay, now let's get on to the mid lane. In the mid lane, we see some changes to Lissandra and Viktor. Lissandra is receiving a huge buff that'll definitely make her team fighting extremely potent. So Lissandra is going to be good in TFT and League. If you guys are interested in TFT content, then follow our TFT guides on our ProGuides TFT channel here. Viktor is receiving a change to his W augment that will now allow him to slow his opponents with his abilities. This is going to be huge because he'll effectively have a Rylai's slow built into his kit already. He's now able to itemize much more aggressively, and as a result, his late game is going to be even crazier. Whether you're a mid or main, or simply learning for the sake of fill games, we heavily suggest picking Lissandra, Malzahar, Twisted Fate, and situationally even Veigar next patch. All of these champions have great engage and for the most part, scale pretty well. While they're not your Azir or Corki type late game hyper carries, they're able to have just as much impact with their crowd control and ability to make picks in later stages of the game. Being able to engage and make picks is the easiest way to set up successful teamfights. Engaging is very self-explanatory as every great teamfight needs one to start things off. Making picks immediately creates a numbers advantage, opening up opportunities for your team to push for objectives, and the enemy team will have to either concede those objectives or contest them with a numbers disadvantage. It's honestly a win-win situation, showing you how important pick making is to winning games. Another great perk about these mid laners that I mentioned is that they're able to run teleport. So many players aren't picking up as much side lane farm as they should be, so playing a mid laner with a teleport will definitely help remedy this. Like we stressed with junglers, since these characters are such great roamers, you can also punish side laners extremely hard when they choose scaling champions. It's not all on the jungler to gank or dive laners. You also, as a mid laner, have a lot of responsibility as well. Anytime you take lane priority, make it a habit to check on your jungler's pathing. If you notice that they're trying to gank or that you've finished their clear on one side of the map, see if you could roam at the same time. Try to time your pushes so that you can sync them up with your jungler's movements and move as a duo with them. In both side lanes, executing a 3v1 dive up top or a 4v2 dive down bottom can be absolutely game-changing. And for bot laners, not much has changed in terms of balance. If you haven't already, you should check out our tier list for this patch and also keep an eye out for our 9.20 tier list, which will be released shortly. The only bottom lane balance changes aside from Locket receiving a buff are a minor Varus buff and Blitzcrank nerf. Varus is already a niche counter pick and the buff is a small one. Simply because of the type of champion he is, we don't think it'll make him super OP or anything, but it'll definitely help him win matchups he already thrives in even harder. In terms of the Blitzcrank nerfs, he's still going to be just as strong as before. If you think the armor nerfs are going to hurt a lot, you can equip an extra armor stat rune during champion select. In the late game, sure, he's lost a decent amount of armor, but Blitzcrank really isn't picked for his tankiness alone. He's still going to be the exact same champion for the most part. And with that said, we really suggest continuing to place emphasis on playing Caitlyn, Ashe, Jinx, Blitzcrank, and Pyke in the bot lane. All of these champions are extremely powerful for different reasons. Play them to their strengths and get some practice on them. They're going to remain strong picks into the next patch and are also dominating on the current one, so don't hesitate to learn them. And if you want to learn any of these champions, go to ProGuides.com. We have a ton of great resources on all these champions. You guys will kill it on the Rift. Alright, that covers our meta guide for 9.20. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you can check out our YouTube channel for more content designed to help you step your game up. We are now also releasing content on our Instagram. We have plays of the day, which you can vote on, which is super awesome. Check that out, we put in the description. And if you guys want to get better at League right now and get a challenger coach, then click that description link below. That's it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and we'll see you on the Rift.